Pat Lynch Barrett. And again, on Women's Radio, I am so happy to welcome back Christine Baumgartner. This is part of a long series that we've been doing with Christine on relationships, all kinds, well, largely with men and women. And if you haven't noticed, we are having a lot more men at Women's Radio, and there's a reason for that, because we're moving into a new era where people can collaborate. I think Christine and I both enjoy that word, but some people think about competition. And so Christine, I think, is going to be talking to us about competition versus collaboration. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, Pat. As always, a pleasure to talk to you. And you gave me a whole new way of thinking about this, an additional way of thinking when we were talking before the show today. And so please share about what Tony Robbins had to say about this. I just think this is fascinating. You think he knew we were going to talk about this, right?
I know you would think he just had this in mind just for us, right? Well, he pointed out that maybe the root of the word, or the one of the translations of the word, was not to go up a competition, not meaning something where you go up against someone, but to mean that it is bringing to conspire to be the best we can be, which is done by me being the best I can be and you trying to be the best you can be, and you try really hard to see if you can top that. So it's not really against each other, it's really helping each other be the best we can be. I really like that point of view.
Mm-hmm. Well, and encouraging people is essential. And some of the ways that you really can encourage somebody is to show them a better way, to show them that you're doing something better. And do they want to step up to that? Do they want to learn what you learned? Do they want to practice as much as you? I mean, that's one of the good sides that can be competition. It can keep people from getting lazy. It can keep people from being complacent, that there's good competition. And sometimes a lot of the ways that people look at competition is that you're trying to take away from somebody else. You're trying to make them less and you more, rather than building yourself up. The way you're feeling better is because you're taking away from another person. And so I love the idea of thinking, well, there could be good competition. At one point I was teaching in my former career as a party planner, and I would teach and they say, oh my gosh, you're going to make competition. I said, but I'm going to make good competition, because people just thought, oh, how hard is it to be a party planner? Turns out it's way harder than most people think. And I said, and how sad they'd go ruin a party, like especially somebody's one-day wedding.
Really?
And then they were on their learning curve, but this person's special day wasn't good. And then the other problem is somebody paid them. So they're like, well, why would I pay somebody to not do a good job? I could do a not a good job on my own for free. So you need to be good. And so that's why they would come and learn from me, so that they could go out and do a better job and then make the profession even a higher caliber. So
Right.
I think that also is a good way to look at competition. And then I think collaborative really adds itself to that, because if you're staying on the same page, why are we being competitive? Why are we doing this way of showing each other how to be better? It's in a very collaborative way. It's in a way to make the whole picture better. It's not just to make me better, and it's not even just to make you better, because if I'm better and you're better, doesn't it make the world a better place? I think that's the way to look at it. And then another word for that is partnership, that if you're both in the same goal, so if you're in the same department or in the same company or in the same meeting or on the same project, that how can each of you make yourself better individually and then collaboratively as a partnership do even better together? Because from the Bible to the Olympics, it's a team effort. That if more of you are together with the same positive goal, it's like it's squared, it gets quadrupled. You can do so much more as a group than by one person. And I can tell you have something to add to that.
I do. I want to say we should send you to the UN. I think that this is the kind of message that needs to get out. and to a much bigger level. But of course, Christine, if we can adopt this kind of point of view, if we can take it into the things that we do on a daily basis, maybe we will act as a demonstration to other people about how it could work. And by doing that, maybe I hate to say it this way, but maybe it could filter to the top. People are talking about things filtering down, but I think that this is exactly what's needed on a worldwide scale. Instead of people fighting for millennia about things they don't even remember, never experienced, and making other people wrong, why don't they find a way to make everything be better? I just don't understand.
It needs, so there's not in our European culture, but in other cultures, there can be two definitions for selfish. One is that you take away from other people for yourself. That's the one that feels really uncomfortable. The one that's better is you do so much good for yourself that you have even more good to give to other people. So if you think about what's the best thing for me that's going to affect the world. So it's like dropping a pebble in a small pond, and then it just keeps going out, and pretty soon it reaches the ocean. Or there's the wonderful story about the little boy and the starfish, and he's walking
Yeah.
down the beach, and the waves, there'd been a horrible typhoon, and there are all these starfish all over, and he's picking up the starfish one at a time and throwing in the ocean. This guy goes, "Oh my God, there's hundreds of starfish. What are you going to do? How can you help?" And he goes, "There's one, there's another." So if we each do our part, if we think, what is going to help me be a better person and add to the world, add to the people that are in my close sphere, then they'll add to the people in their close sphere. And then pretty soon it really does make a difference. I mean, you've seen like some of the really important world leaders that have done very good in the world. It's because they had a real sense of partnership and
That
collaborative.
is
And
so
they went
true.
toe to toe with the people who didn't and said, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen because it's better for the world. And they turned a lot of things around. We've had some really great leaders in our past who have turned things around. So if you think about that, one of my best stories is because I live in Southern California when we had the Olympics in the 80s, and Lee Iacocca, they're like, "Oh my God, he ran a car company. How does he know anything about the Olympics?" But what he did is he got all the city managers, all the big companies to say, we need people to not be on the streets just during the Olympics because there's going to be all these people from out of town and they're going to need to have transportation and parking. And they all went, "Okay, we are a mass transfer." I mean, you go out at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's traffic jams because we're all in our cars all the time. It was so smooth because he got everybody on a collective reason. It's going to make our city run better. It's going to make the Olympics run. Don't we want to look at this good? And your employees can stay home and work. It was way before COVID when people are doing remote working
Oh,
or they did more carpooling and they could watch the Olympics. I actually got to go. It was really cool. But it was fascinating how well all these people who could be much more self-involved about, well, I need to be in my car. No, they went, "Oh, right, it's the Olympics. We're going to do this for the Olympics. And we're having them back here in 28. I hope they have just as good a person as Lee Iacocca was." But isn't that a great example
it
of
is. That's
really
just a
good
perfect
collaboration?
example. Well,
Oh,
I've got one more. I wish I could tell you all the people who participated, but I know that MIT was one of them because they had the equipment and the technology at that point. There was a group of really A-list companies in high technology at the time, including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And they put I would like to say a robot, but they put their technology to work to find the best answer. So it was, in a sense, the prelude to artificial intelligence. And so they chose a situation where there was a labor union and a corporation who just could not come to grips with a solution. And they were asked if they would agree to try this method out and then abide by the solution. So they did. And they were both stunned that the solution that was suggested was one that both of them could agree to. They both really thought that was the best solution. And I'm thinking, well, I hate to think that it takes a machine, but what happened was a machine who's unbiased, so to speak, was able to take all the input and then statistically and every other way, looking at all the other things that had ever happened or whatever, pick out the best solution. And really, aren't we trying to do those things? Right. So if we, and now we're getting a lot more help, right? We have AI now. So
Yeah, if you look
I
at,
think it is possible.
I've known a number of mediators in my life, and it's amazing because that's what they do. They take both sides and they listen to all the emotion because that's really often what's getting in the way of making an agreement. And they listen out and then they cut it down to the facts. Here's the facts. What's going to be the best for both sides with the best end insight? And it's amazing, not always. It's amazing how often both sides will go, okay, okay, it's okay. But they can't do it often by themselves because, as you said, there's so much emotion. There's emotion about the thing, for sure, guaranteed. And then there's so much behind it. How other people
True.
have treated you. Maybe they even, in corporations, when it's come down to it, because I won't name any names, but they look like their father. And it annoyed the shit out of them because their father had been a terrible person, which is really too bad, but let's not bring that to work. And when that
Right.
comes down to, you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I am reacting. I'm not coming from the logical part of my brain and how would this be best for our work? So that's where you think, what's the partnership? What's the collaborative? Because that
Right.
often will soothe the emotional side, where the
Also,
competitive is very emotional.
it is, and usually negative. And I was just thinking that it also, if you even lead yourself or lead your little group or whoever it is, that to think, isn't there a collaborative way to look at this issue and come out with something better than we might have before? If you are even willing to turn your mind to looking at that opportunity, usually the ideas come flooding in.
Yeah. When you take the big high, I'm losing, because that's usually the emotion that you feel if it's competitive, that you're going to lose. Because that's what it is. Like in sports, one person's going to lose and one person's going to win. If you go out to bid on something, one company wins and the other one loses. That if you take that part away when you're doing the fact finding, when you're working within your own company to say, how is our collaborative even stronger? That you aren't competing with each other within your company. At least start there.
Right.
Because I think when you look at when you talked about the UN, the countries that are having rancor with each other, they're having rancor inside their country. Their
They
country's not
are.
getting along. So that's where I believe it really needs to start, because how do you have the leaders get along when they're probably a lot of the reason that the people in their countries are not getting along, because it's not a very collaborative atmosphere. So
Right.
I think if we could just start in our own four walls, our house, our work, that if we could figure out how to be more collaborative with each other, to be more, what's the good for the whole,
Right.
not just for me, but for the whole,
Right.
that it could be expanding so much to the world. I mean, do you know, we talked about this, one of our early talks, about how Zappos has a happiness person. That's
Yes.
their job, is to go around and make how are you doing? And is there anything you need? How are you doing? Is there anything you need? That corporate culture, I know 3 companies that have this kind of a thing, and their companies, people never leave. They love being there.
Right.
They're happy employees. To think about how could that be spread out into more companies. And it's usually because there's only collaboration and not the kind of competitive where it's taking anything away from anybody else.
Well, Christine, I think we ought to take this conversation and tape it and then send it out to all the corporations we think that could benefit by hearing it.
Okay. Our unsolicited thoughts about what's going on at your company. Let's see if you like it. Okay.
That's right, exactly.
I have no trouble with that.
Well, I love the conversation, and I think it has a lot of merit, and I hope that it will stimulate a lot of thinking with the people who are listening. And I want to encourage all of our listeners again to write us and tell us what you think. Write us and tell us your stories. If you have questions for Christine, ask your question. You probably at this point can find this link right under her picture in her page at Women's Radio. But I'm going to give you the link. It is team, or the email, team, TEAM, at women, WOMEN, corp, CORP.com. Christine, thank you so very much for being my guest today. I know we still have some great things to talk about, and that you'll be back. I believe that we're probably going to take a week off, so we might miss getting one more in, or you might find, if you're listening, that there's a week without Christine, but it won't be for long. We'll be back. Thank you so much, Christine.
Always my pleasure, Pat. Thanks again.